Welcome to Man in America, a voice of reason in a world gone mad. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse, and I'm truly live right now. This is a live show on Thursday evening. I'm excited to be here with you, and my guest today, Ryan Madden, he'll be bringing in shortly. We're going to be just having a no-holds-barred, serious conversation about Epstein, pedophile networks, the fact that, according to my guest today and his whistleblower resources, the United States government basically runs the world's largest child sex trafficking ring, which is kind of crazy. We'll be diving into that, talking about James O'Keefe and some of his recent things, and asking the big question that you're probably asking yourself, I'm asking myself, Ryan's asking himself: when are the Epstein files coming out? What's Pam Bondi doing? There's been, Cash and Bondi, they've taken down some networks. They've put some people behind bars, which is great. But we're waiting for the big things that are going to shift the direction of this country. So we're going to be diving into all this and more. I will give you a little warning ahead of time that this is a show talking about child sex trafficking. So if you are faint at heart, if you have a hard time facing these issues, maybe you should, go watch Disney or something. Actually, probably not Disney, because Disney's got that stuff laced in there anyway. But, just giving you a little bit of a warning that this is going to be a more serious discussion about things that are difficult topics. But that's what we're here for, is to have the difficult topics. Now, just a few quick notes, a few show notes before we dive in. First off, I want to thank one of the show sponsors today, American Financing. So American Financing, what they do basically, let's say you're buried in credit card debt, which a lot of our nation is right now in record numbers. What they allow you to do is, if you own your house, they actually can structure a loan based upon the equity in your house, specifically for paying off a lot of your high interest credit card debt. Leveraging a much lower interest loan based upon your equity. There's even ways that you can kind of hold off on a couple of your mortgage payments if you need to, if you're really kind of buried. But if you want to check it out, the website is americanfinancing.net/Seth. And on average, people are saving about $800 a month through them. So great company if you want to check it out. Again, americanfinancing.net/Seth. The other thing I'm excited about is that we've also launched our website. This is a new little initiative, Make Skies Blue Again. If you walk out and you see this beautiful sunny day and you see the chemtrails starting, and an hour later it's cloudy, and that evening you're coughing and you're just angry like I am, there's a lot you can do about it. One thing you can do is buy a shirt, wear a shirt that says Make Skies Blue Again, ban geoengineering. This is something that my wife and I put together just as we got so sick of seeing chemtrails. Okay, what can we do? Okay, so here's some t-shirts. So they're sarcastic, they're fun. There's all kinds of t-shirts and hats and yard signs and flags and all that. So that's just makeskiesblueagain.com. Promo code Seth, SETH, will save you 10% on that. The other thing is that I've recently upgraded all of my audio. So if you're a regular listener and you're used to hearing how my audio sounds, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments. Just let me know, like, is the audio better? Is it improved? Because I love getting your feedback on how things are sounding, and we're always trying to improve. So we've got a whole new audio setup. We had actually my friend Sergey Brown, who runs the ClearSky, one of the anti geoengineering programs, helped me set things up. So shout out to him. So anyway, let's just dive in. Let's just bring in Ryan. Ryan, good to see you, man. It's great to be live with you. Thank you for being here tonight.
And Seth, it's an honor to be here, brother. Super stoked to be live with your audience. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's kind of crazy because about a week and probably less than a week ago, you and I recorded this amazing hour-and-a-half long interview diving into human trafficking, Epstein, the southern border, NGOs. It was this amazing interview that you and I are both so pumped about, and then the file was corrupted. So it was kind of a bummer, and my backup didn't work either. So anyway, I guess now we're here live. So anyway, I guess maybe it happened for a reason, because here we are.
I guess so, man. That was by far, I think that was my absolute best interview. If I would have lost any other interview, I probably wouldn't even have been that upset about it. But that one, like, we unpacked so much, and it was like, we're never going to remake that interview. It was the best by far.
Yeah. Well, let's do it tonight. Let's make this one even better. Right. So anyway, Ryan, how about just give our audience a quick introduction of yourself for people that don't know you. You're a complete heavy hitter. You're just like swinging for the fences and trying to expose these pedophile networks and corruption. But I'll let you give yourself a quick introduction though for the folks that aren't really as familiar with you or your work.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a documentary filmmaker, investigative journalist. New to this industry in this field. I've been in videography and photography for a really long time, but never put it into actually creating long form content like I am now. I was just a Bitcoiner podcasting 3 years ago and wanted nothing to do with politics. I would have kicked you out of my live stream if you would have came in and started talking about Trump or Biden in the live chat. I wanted nothing to do with it. And then when they demonetized my YouTube channel for putting out a video that said Andrew Tate is a Bitcoin, Andrew Tate put out a video and it said Bitcoin is a better investment than buying a house. And being into Bitcoin, excuse me, I put out the video and then it got demonetized. And when I got demonetized, I was actually moonlighting for LFA TV because at that point I had started putting out a little bit of political shorts. I put out some Trump shorts and I was breaking the Twitter algorithm or the YouTube algorithm. We're doing about 30 million views a month across free channels, which if put that in perspective so your audience has an idea, Redacted put a post out last week and was excited because they broke 16 million views on YouTube. Like that, so I was doing 30 million in 2022 and talking about Trump when Trump was still pretty much deplatformed from every social media platform. So part of that, and then I was going down to film some stuff for the January Sixers and then and doing interviews with Laura Loomer when she was still she had just got her Twitter back at that time. And they demonetized me. So I was walking out by the grace of God. I don't know how else to explain it besides just God just works in the weirdest ways. You know, I thought I would be sitting on a beach, drinking Mai Tais, enjoying my wealth from Bitcoin. And here I am, you know, spending thousands of dollars a month out of my own pocket to put these films together because my first week at LFA TV, so when I was walking out of CPAC that night at 6:45 filming for LFA TV, my phone went off and all my subscribers were blowing up my phone telling me that I had canceled their memberships. And I was like, I didn't cancel memberships. So I opened up my email and see that it got demonetized. And that was at 6:45 p.m. I remember it like yesterday. And I walked out of the door and at 7:03, Jeremy offered me a job on LFA TV. And I was like, well, I shouldn't lose all my income and then, you know, not turn down easy income like that. So yeah, sure, I'll take the job. And then first week on the job, Carlos Arellano, the whistleblower who worked under both the Biden administration and the Trump administration prior Trump administration. And he was the one who was delivering the children for these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations that have been trafficking, you know, hundreds of thousands of migrant children all across our country to pretty much every single state, actually every single state, 100% fact. And now our government's taken possession of basically 450,000 migrant children. They delivered and they vetted the adults after taking possession of them and then delivered 350,000 of them into America. And they've lost them. And to put that into perspective, so your audience doesn't understand, America is the number one consumer of child P. They are the number one consumer of child R, and they are the number one consumer of satanic ritual sacrifice. And that is America. And we're also the number one consumer of all hard narcotics. So in a country that is all of the above, that would be the last place you'd want your child to be lost in. And our government has delivered 350,000 of these children into a network of pedophiles, and they cannot locate a single one.
Which is just, I mean, it's absolutely sickening, and we'll be diving into a lot of that. But I'll pull up your website just briefly, and we'll be referring to it a few different times throughout the show. You got Operation Amber Alert is your site with your documentary, really focused on the child trafficking. You also have whatistreason.com. Or sorry, what is treason? What is the other site?
This is treason.
Oh, this is treason.com. Okay.
So this is treason.com. What is treason? It's a little confusing.
Okay, so this is treason.com. And so you've been really focused on this. I mean, and not just focused on it sitting in, you know, in your basement researching on Twitter, but you're going to, like, you've been to Guatemala, you've been to a lot of sketchy areas, and like you've like seen this happening, right? Like, so like walk us through some of that. Like, what have you've been on the ground in a lot of different places, right?
Yeah, a lot of different places. So I started going to, the first place I went to was El Salvador. And I was really just going there just to film a Bitcoin documentary. And when in El Salvador, I was introduced to a gentleman because my films were out and everybody was talking about it at this event I was at. And I got introduced to somebody who's like, oh, you got to meet my friend Bob McDonald. He runs this child trafficking rescue orphanage in El Salvador and he does amazing things. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, okay, I'm going to go into a hellhole where kids are probably going to be getting raped, R-word, and assaulted inside these facilities. Sorry, I know we're on YouTube, so I have to be careful what words I say.
Honestly, like, I think as long as we're not dropping F-bombs or saying that like the COVID juice is doing what it's doing, you know, screw YouTube. If they delete the video, they delete the video.
All right, cool. Well, so I thought I was going to see children that were getting sexually assaulted by the staff members in this facility. That's really, because in America, I've been doing this for almost 3 years now, and I could not take you or tell you, if you asked me to where I could donate money to, I could honestly not tell you an organization or a charity that I've actually been to personally myself and seen that they actually take care and actually provide care and give these children a better life. So when I went down to this one, that's what I was expecting to see. And I met a gentleman named Bob McDonald, and he is literally proof that angels walk among us. What this man has done in El Salvador without any government funding. Well, now I think they've donated a truck and a few things since we started putting out all of our videos and really amplifying what he's doing there and what a great service it is. It's like if we wanted to save these children and provide a safe environment, we would just replicate exactly what this man has done in El Salvador and implement it here in America, and we would have a safe place to take these children to. So once I was in El Salvador, I got contacted. I came back and I put out my first documentary, Operation Amber Alert, and then I had it translated into Spanish. And then 24 hours later, I was contacted by the Attorney General of Guatemala, asking if I would come down there and talk to her team about the massive amounts of migrant children. Now, put this into perspective, right? I'm a Bitcoiner. 3 years ago, I'm not a journalist. I'm not credible. I don't have any reputation as a journalist that somebody would want to talk to. And the Attorney General is in such a bad position because she had been trying to communicate with our government and failing to do so, or failing to get a response from our government. So she had to a point so bad that she had to call Ryan Mehta and ask this guy to come down there and talk to her because she can't get anything out of our own government. And to put that, so your audience understands, right? An attorney general and a president of the United States, Trump, appoints ambassadors to every country so that the White House has a direct line of communication to the attorney general's house, because the attorney general of Guatemala will coordinate with the FBI and DHS, and they'll do raids and human trafficking and bust and drug narcotics. So there's this constant open line of communication that you should have. And when she started to investigate these NGOs that were trafficking children, she was trying to contact our government and she was failing to do so, to the point where 2 weeks prior to raiding 5 NGOs that are operating both in the state of Texas and in Guatemala and are under investigation for trafficking children, she wanted to do a joint raid. So she reached out to Ken Paxton and was like, hey, I have all of this intel that the United States government is running a child trafficking network where, because of your open border policies, these cartels have been kidnapping and trafficking children out of Guatemala into America. And then they're being processed at the border migratorily. And the government of Texas is putting these children into shelters that are supposed to act like their parents. But we know what's happening. Our children are getting abused and raped and sexually assaulted in these facilities. And she goes, and the craziest part about the story is that these facilities are being funded with the American taxpayer dollar. And Texas is aware of this, knows that it's happening, and for some reason is allowing it to continue. So we'd like to work with your office. And she basically said that she was willing, there was no length that she was willing to go to bring these children home safely to Guatemala. And after that went unanswered for 2 weeks, they couldn't wait any longer. So they had to raid these NGOs, and they raided the NGOs. And one of them was Save the Children. And then within moments of that news kind of going viral, everybody started digging in to Save the Children. The Guatemalan government didn't even know it at the time, but Jill Biden sat on the board of directors for the NGO Save the Children that was literally raided for trafficking children out of Guatemala into America. And they found all the evidence to prove that they were trafficking these children out of Guatemala into America through this network of NGOs. And because, obviously Ken Paxton chose to not respond to that letter, he basically gave every one of these NGOs bleach bit. I mean, they've had what, 6 months now, a year now, to destroy all the evidence and cut all ties and disappear whatever children that they claim that they never had. I mean, it's pretty bad. So then from there, I ended up coming back and I ended up putting out my second Operation Amber Alert film, which is Operation Amber Alert Guatemala, because out of the 452,000 children we talk about that have came across the border, these are children ages 0 to 17. 48% roughly, give or take, were from Guatemala, which gives you a number of about around 190,052 children ages 0 to 17 have been kidnapped and trafficked out of Guatemala and have arrived at the U.S. southern border. And our government has taken physical possession of them and has lost or delivered about 75% of them into this network, into this abyss, and cannot locate roughly 75% of these children.
Absolutely insane.
Then from there, I went to Malaysia, Guatemala, so then, once you start getting into the trafficking world, right, you start to realize it's so much bigger. And in order to get an understanding of it, you have to go and see it for yourself. It's really the sex tourism that you see and you hear people talk about it. It's completely different when you see it in real life. So I went into Malaysia to do an interview with Ken O'Keefe because I'm working on another documentary on Israel that he's going to be featured in, which will be coming out on 9/11. I went to see him. And then when we were out one night, we were at a restaurant, and after a restaurant, he was going to hang out with the girlfriend that he was with. One of his producers or something came into town, and they were out having some drinks or whatever. And it was like 12 o'clock. And I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to head home. So in order to get off this strip that I was on, it reminded me of almost like a New Orleans, where all the businesses are on the street, but there's so many people walking down the street that like cars can barely drive. So in order to get my Uber, I had to leave the restaurant and walk like almost 2 blocks to get up to an open intersection. So like as I'm walking by, I'm not thinking, even think I'm a remotely good looking dude, not good enough to where girls are going to stop me on the side of the road and like grab me and start trying to talk to me and flirt with me. And by the time I made it to that stop, I had been stopped by about 3 or 4 of these black girls that were working on the street. They were dressed obviously as escorts and they were trying to pick me up, but some of them don't communicate. Almost all of them, none of them speak actual English. It's always broken English if they even speak it. A lot of times it's you're trying to communicate through an app. And they'll just ask you, you want a friend, or you want a company, or you want, you want to have some fun or something, whatever they say to you. They all say something different. But I got to the corner, and then that was the corner was where all the girls were staying, and the girls were standing out there, and one of them started to talk to me, and I started to have a conversation with her because she spoke a little bit of English, and asking her a few questions. I realized, I go, you're getting trafficked, and she goes, I go, did you pay somebody to bring you here, and does somebody have your passport? And she looked at me with like a deer in headlights. And I was like, and I pulled out my phone, and then I show her my documentary. I say, I'm, one of the world's leading experts in government funded child trafficking. I make documentaries on child trafficking. So I have an understanding of what you're going through. And I said, I have a feeling you're being trafficked. And I'm like, can I ask you some questions? And she's like, pulled me aside off the street and just basically opened up and just told me everything about how she was picked up out of these villages in Tanzania, how they basically told her she knew that she was going to be a street worker, or an escort, but she didn't know like the conditions that it would be. She didn't really know how tough and hard it would be. She had been there. I want to say she had been there for 9 months, and she still, because of how much money these girls have to pay the traffickers, she still had not had a penny to her name. She basically had enough money to get some food and pay her rent that night. But outside of that, the traffickers were taking everything. And she told me how this operation worked. They go into these third world villages where these girls have absolutely nothing. They have no running water, no electricity, no internet. Half of them have never used a phone, let alone seen a phone, and they don't speak English. So, or Thai or Malaysian, whatever language that they need to speak in whatever country they're going to be going to. So they've never filled out a visa application. They've never got a passport. They never bought a plane ticket. So the trafficker basically goes in and tells them that they can make 25 or $50 per date. And they say that you're going to go on dates and you're going to be somebody's girlfriend. You're either going to be somebody's girlfriend for an hour, or you're going to be a girlfriend for the night. And your prices and rates that you'll determine what the prices that you want to charge. Here's the going rates. And to these girls that make, if they could make 50 cents a day working in a cobalt mine in Africa, or $1 a day, that would be a good day. And that's hard work, 12 hours a day. So for them to come over here and go on a date with some guy and have sex with them for 50 or for $25, I mean, that's like hitting the lottery to these girls. Now, they don't realize that the trafficker is going to be taking a majority of that when they sign up for this. But the traffickers sell packages. It's 5,000, 8,000, or 10,000, depending if they want a 1 month, a 3 month, or a 1 year visa. And most of these girls are, like I said, they're not that they're stupid, right? Because they're very intelligent and street smart in the ways that they're intelligent. But, half of them didn't go to school because their parents couldn't afford school where they're from. So long story short, once they go to the village and they find the girls that are willing to do this, then this is the exact same techniques that Epstein used. It's the exact same locations and areas where he was recruiting a lot of these foreign girls. So long story short, they convince the girl, they buy her plane ticket. They buy her, they apply for her visa. They apply for her passport. They take her to get her passport photo. They apply to get her visa. They travel with her on the flight. They buy her plane ticket, and then they get her to a country where she doesn't know anybody, doesn't speak English. And at that point, they basically get her a cell phone so they can communicate with her. And that's about it. Or they get her a SIM card for the cell phone to communicate with her. Oh, and they get her a cell phone because obviously she doesn't have a cell phone. And then she's basically put out on the streets, and she has to go out. From the day they land, if the flight lands at 3:00, by 7:00 that night, she's out on the streets. And then she has to sleep with at least 2 men a day to pretty much just to pay for her passport because of their packages, right? So she has to pay off the package. And then if she did the $5,000 package, she has to renew her visa in a month. And then she has to pay the trafficker to do that again. So they keep them basically in this never-ending debt that they're always in servitude to the trafficker. And I never met one girl, and I probably interviewed close to 50 of them, one of them that had got their passport back. Some of them have been there longer than 90 days, but most of the girls seemed like they weren't even there for 90 days. And then they were either burning out, getting arrested, overstaying their visa, getting deported, or just having no money whatsoever. And the trafficker was taking everything. So that's kind of the operation. And then I went into Thailand. And then when I was into Thailand, it's literally the exact same thing, where all of the Asian girls are working in the brothels and the clubs. And I would say, like in Thailand, roughly 10% of their GDP probably comes from sex workers. These are girls that are on the streets selling themselves. And you look at and it's so normalized there. It's like part of their culture. And you just look, and I remember being on top of the tallest building in Thailand, and I was looking around at like millions of people. I mean, Thailand's probably got 100 million people. I mean, it's a very thriving population where you would assume their government's collecting a lot of money in taxes from all the business and all the revenue that goes through Thailand. And I just was on the tallest skyscraper looking around and I just go, I can't imagine that the men in this country are like, yes, I want to grow up and I want to have kids and I want to, hopefully my daughter's working out in Nana Plaza one day. Like I can't imagine that the men want that future for their daughters, but yet it's such a norm that you see these girls that are working in, like the Asian girls have literally left whatever village that their parents live in and they've came to Bangkok to try to make money to send back to their families. You would assume that when you in that country, if your daughter said she's going to Bangkok, she's probably going to Bangkok, if you will. And she's literally out there on the streets and they send the money back home to their parents. And what it seemed like is the Asian girls are literally just looking for a foreigner to marry. I mean, they're out on the streets working, but they're really looking for somebody to marry them. And because they don't have social nets and they don't have a 401ks in Thailand, it's just common that like the Asian girls take such good care of their men that if you go to Thailand and you meet an Asian girl and you actually want to get married to her and take her home with you, the deal will be made with the parents where you actually negotiate a deal to give the parents $5, $10, $20,000 depending on what deal you negotiate, because the Asian girls literally they're like servants. They worship the ground their husband walks on. They take amazing care of you. They cook, they clean, they do the dishes. They're going to be basically a partner, almost like more so than almost like an American woman. You might not get the same type of, I don't know, I guess relationship that you have there, but the Asian girls don't want to go to work. They just want to be a great wife and they want to have kids. So the parents know that. So that's kind of the deal you would work out with the parents if you met an Asian girl over there and you wanted to take her home. And then from there, I went into Australia where I interviewed Andrew McLeod, who's a specialist he's actually from NATO. He was in the NATO, he was in the UN Peacekeepers organization. So we've heard the horror stories about the UN Peacekeepers. And he was actually involved in the Red Cross organization of the UN Peacekeepers when the story broke about the peacekeepers in Haiti they were delivering aid in Haiti during one of the earthquakes. And there were so many basically people that were out of homes that in order to get into the aid tent and have a roof over your head and actually get some food for your children, the line was so long and that they were only taking families. And what they were doing is they were telling the family that they had to give one of their daughters to the UN peacekeepers and she had to go work in the nightclub, while if they wanted into the tent, if they wanted to get aid for the rest of their family, they had to basically give up one of their daughters. And these peacekeepers were taking these children to the nightclubs and they were chaining them inside cages, inside these strip clubs. And they were letting men basically pay to have sex with them. So none of the UN peacekeepers were arrested from that. And we had mountains of evidence to prosecute these people. And if you actually do a little bit of research, you look at how many UN peacekeepers have been arrested, and you'll realize it's been zero. Zero have actually been prosecuted and charged with a crime. So what you see here is these organizations like the UN and their Red Cross and Southwest Key programs, at one point they might have been designed or created to provide good and actually do something good for humanity. But what they've turned into is they've turned into giant pedophile magnets. So what we see is if you're a pedophile now, you're not incentivized, especially if you're a Joe the plumber or you're a 9-to-5er, right? You don't have access to an unlimited amount of vulnerable women and children unless you're going to kidnap one and chain them in the basement, which probably doesn't sound like such a slick plan. These people aren't the smartest people in the world. Why wouldn't you just go get a job that's going to put you into an environment where you're going to have access, an unlimited access to the world's most vulnerable children, and you're going to be able to rape them and have your way with them because nobody that's ever done so has ever been busted or charged with a crime. So where Andrew comes into this mix is he's working on doing DNA testing of the children. So if you go over to, say you went over to Thailand or say you went over to the Philippines, because this is where you're starting it at, sex work is very common there. And it's a huge pedophile magnet for men that want to go have sex with underage children. So a lot of these men will go over there and they'll have sex with these women or these children and they won't wear a condom. And they're like, yeah, what do I care if I come at her and she gets pregnant? I'm never going to see this little girl again. And that's what they do. And because abortion is illegal in the Philippines, a lot of the times the birth control won't work, the condom will break, or whatever the case may be. The girls just don't have access to the medical care that they need, will end up getting pregnant. And then they end up keeping the child. Well, if that mother is 14 and gives birth, at any point, she can get her child DNA tested and submit it to this company that Andrew's building, and he can run that DNA through Ancestry.com. And because so many people have given DNA, it doesn't have to be you. It could be a brother, a sister, a cousin. He just needs a couple people to have donated DNA from anywhere in your family lineage, and he can pinpoint who it is because he also has records to he also has access to travel records. So one of the men he found that one of the DNA samples that he tested came back with 3 brothers. And then he went and checked out the travel records of the three brothers and goes, oh, okay, only one of you had went to the Philippines at this period of time. And he went and got that man, he went and got a court order, had the DNA tested from that man, and he's able to get these children, at the very least, citizenship in whatever country the father's from. So that's huge for some of these children that live in these third world countries. They could get the citizenship if their father's American. And then in countries like Australia, where having sex with anybody under the age of 16 is a federal crime, if you have the evidence, which they've never been able to have before, but when you can go take that DNA and get a judge to give you a court order stating that that is the man, that is the adult, that is the father of that child, he can then go back to Australia and prosecute these people. Or at the very least, he says it like this. He goes, I might not catch you today. I might not catch you tomorrow. I might not catch you for 10 years. I might catch you at your 88th birthday party when you're surrounded with your family and I show up knocking on your door, letting them know that good old grandpa was actually into having sex with minor children. He impregnated a girl at the age of 14 over in the Philippines in the 1980s. Or maybe I show up at your family reunion and you've already passed away. And then every single member of your family, you don't get any last words. The last thing that they're going to remember about you is that you were a pedophile who raped children. So he's putting together this basically DNA testing, I don't even know what you want to call it, organization, a foundation that is just going to go into these countries and do massive amounts of DNA tests for any of these mothers or any of the children. You know, a lot of these kids are 18 now, and they just, you know, if you imagine growing up without a father, you'd always want to know who your father is. And well, now, you know, these children can kind of have an idea and they can actually figure out who their father was. And where they came from. So that's kind of what I've been on this journey that has taken me across the world, documenting and investigating child trafficking networks, and getting ready to go to Mexico tomorrow or on Monday, where we're going to be going like deep into the mix into Mexico. I can't really say too much about it, but stay tuned on X. We'll be bringing you some footage of some of these prostitution networks that nobody else has ever documented.
Crazy. Well, so I used to do a lot of business in Hong Kong, and I was always in the business district in Wan Chai in Hong Kong, and it was I was always, oftentimes around, there's a big convention center there. And like right next to the convention center is the red light district. And we're walking through so many times at night, and it's crazy. And you walk through and there's probably, if I walk 3 blocks, I'll pass probably 50 different young girls, right? Now, maybe they were 18, maybe they were 16, maybe they were 20. Almost always, they were never were they native Hong Kongers, right? They weren't Chinese. They were, I'd probably say, Malaysian, Cambodian, from Philippines, etc. But huge networks, operating in Hong Kong, where I think it's legal. I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure what the legality is, but they do it anyway. It's just crazy though. You mentioned Epstein, so I want to hit Epstein kind of a little bit here and kind of dive in a little bit related to Epstein, which I know you've done deep research on Epstein, and then I want to kind of tie that into the overall kind of governmental operation of this. So looking at Epstein, so there's a few things I'll bring up. So one is so Pam Bondi just came out, and recently, actually, wait, is that the Oh, so let's see. I've got a different video here. So here's her talking about a recent video that's going viral with her talking. 30-second clip. Just listen real quick.
James Comer said yesterday that all the Epstein files are missing. They still haven't heard from you.
No, the FBI. Yeah, the FBI. They're reviewing. There are tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. And there are hundreds of victims. And no one victim will ever get released. It's just the volume, and that's what they're going through right now. The FBI is diligently going through that. I haven't seen that statement, but I'll call him later.
So that's one thing that we've had. The other thing is that James O'Keefe had just this was kind of his big news that he was dropping, that he was kind of like, I didn't kill myself type thing. And, Prince Andrew. So here's this guy, John Bryan, who was very, very close with the royal family. Probably not now. Maybe he'll end up, with a Clinton style death. You never know. This is one of the videos of him. Basically, this guy saying that Prince Andrew was effing underage girls, this is significant. Now, these are things that I was aware of Prince Andrew. A lot of people have been aware that he's been someone that was, tied into the Epstein network for quite some time. I'll play this short, kind of clip here.
Prince Andrew, he was in the Navy. He was 250 days at sea. He never saw his kid. I was really pissed because he lied to me. Epstein. And then I did a big thing in the Daily Mail saying that I believed Andrew. And then I found out he was lying. I was so pissed. No, they was f***ing underage girls. That's not cool.
John Bryan has been a close confidant to the British royal family for a long time. He worked for Queen Elizabeth II, was, quote, best friends with Princess Diana, and had a long-term intimate relationship with the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson. According to Bryan, he practically raised Sarah Ferguson's children, the princesses Beatrice and Eugene. And Bryan said that he maintained a friendship with Ferguson's husband, the Duke of York, Prince Andrew.
Tell me like your story.
So my story.
So anyway, so that was, you know, O'Keefe's kind of big drop, right? Is, you know, sharing this video, this guy that had known Prince Andrew and saying, yeah, he was absolutely involved, which, you know, is kind of like what a lot of people already knew. People were looking into this. So maybe it's shocking that there's a kind of more hard evidence, though it's still just, you know, one guy who knows him. But the bigger picture here, like let's just take a step back and look at this, because so Epstein is kind of oftentimes the perceived representative of elite pedophile networks. But you know, I'm sure you'd agree with me that he's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, and the iceberg is absolutely massive. Like it's absolutely massive. But what do you, I guess, what's your take on this new information coming out? What's your take on Pam Bondi? You know, we were promised, you know, over and over and over again, day one, they're going to come in, they're going to release the Epstein files, they're going to do all these things, they're going to end the IRS. And I'm still waiting on a lot of things. I'm not complaining too much, because there's been some good things under Trump. However, I'm still waiting for like the Fed, you know, arresting the treasonous people that stole 2020. Like, there's a lot of things I'm kind of waiting, like, okay, is this ever going to happen? Or is it going to be another 4 years of, okay, we're going to do something really great here, big announcement. It's like, okay, yeah, that's I guess that's kind of cool, but like, is this going to change anything? Anyway, so what's your take on Epstein files, Pam Bondi? Are we going to see some arrests? Are we going to see this information come out? Is she telling the truth when she says that they're just so inundated with search, you know, kind of filtering through this information? There's 10,000, you know, over tens of thousands of hours and all this footage of you know, probably horrific stuff to kind of watch. What's your take on all this, man?
You know, I like James gets a lot of attention, right? So when you got 7 million views on an Epstein video in 24 hours, I think that's huge. I think it definitely moves the needle forward. I was definitely kind of disappointed, but you know, that's just James' style, right? It's a little bit gay, it's a little bit flamboyant, it's a little bit over the top and dramatic, and like that's how James rolls. So, but I was expecting when he said he had to go into hiding. And I hope that, you know, this is just the first two of many, and that he's kind of slow rolling it. And he's doing this on purpose to build up to something massive, right? Because that's what it seemed like when you're on Alex Jones and you're going dark and you need to give him a kill man switch. Like, if I would have had that Pam Bondi video, I would have I don't even think I would have made it out of that cafe before I had it posted online. Like, I wouldn't have been this big buildup, but maybe it needed to be done, and maybe there's more coming. I don't know. But Alex Jones was like, yeah, there's an insider inside the Trump administration that's been, you know, basically sabotaging the Epstein investigation, and I think it's Pam Bondi, and we got the smoking gun. And then you watch the video that James put out about with basically Pam Bondi talking to somebody in a cafe, which was like not even 24 hours before she said it publicly. It might even have been literally the same day. So it was like that information was going out. It was going to be made public. Why was she telling it to some lady in a cafe? I don't know, but it wasn't like it was classified information, or it was just her saying that, you know, there was thousands of tapes of Epstein effing these children. So as far as that goes, I'm excited because it got the hype out, right? It got a bunch of people talking about Epstein again, and it's showing like this administration that, like, if you think you're just going to do your PR campaign, you're going to arrest some MS-13 gang members and secure the border, and we're just going to forget about 2020. We're going to forget about the jab. We're going to forget about the missing children. We're going to forget about Epstein. I think you're sadly mistaken. I think that's what this is showing America. Like, this is a top priority for Americans. This is what we wanted to see. This is what we really sent Trump back to the White House to do, right? We sent him to clean house. We sent him to eradicate the deep state. He told us he knew where all the bodies were buried. He was going to appoint all of the right people. And it's the appointments, the people that are surrounding Trump, that are the biggest issue, in my personal opinion, to this administration and the progress we're moving forward. We'll get into when we start talking about back my other documentaries and the government's involvement in this. You'll start to hear, you know, what Mark Rubio has been up to. And I think that'll blow your audience's mind, because he's definitely not clean. In my personal opinion, he's sabotaging the Trump administration from the inside out. And that's what you've seen. You've seen all these people that surround Trump that are just, you know, not doing what we wanted them to do. And I get they have a lot going on. There's probably a lot more that's happening behind the scenes that we don't see. But at the same time, maybe Trump set Pam Bondi up, because when you dive into this and you look at who Epstein was and how Epstein became Epstein, this guy was like a college dropout who was like a teacher of some sort and had like a 9-to-5 job. He wasn't like very wealthy and rich and successful. And he turns into this basically billionaire mogul. You don't do that without the protection of the intelligence agencies. And then you start listening to people like, what's that guy's name? His name is, he's Nick Bryant, right? He's probably one of the world leading experts. And I don't know if you've ever interviewed Nick Bryant, but if you haven't, he would be one. So he was the first journalist to acquire Epstein's Black Book, right? So he's been on this story from the early on. I think he said got into it in like 2012. And that's when he got the Black Book in 2012. So he's been on it probably for even longer than that. So he tells the story about the first time that Epstein got busted in 2005, right? They raided his house in 2005 or 2006. And they didn't end up sentencing him until 2008. During that period of time, there was 22 witnesses total. The DOJ already had 17 underage victims. These are girls, just the underage girls that it came forward to testify against Epstein, that they were being raped, sex trafficked, you name it, sold out to Epstein's friends. All of these minor children were coming forward. Now, out of those children, they also had 5 additional ones. And Nick Bryant says that he knows that at least 2 of these girls that Epstein was raping were 8 years old. So Epstein was raping at least 22. There was at least 22 victims that they know about. 2 of them, their parents. I mean, Victoria Giuffre's parents, her father was driving her to Epstein's house. So people think of these trafficking networks. Epstein's a really rare, unique apparatus that, like, nobody would operate the way that Epstein operated. Nobody is going to have sex with a 13-year-old girl and then send her back home to her parents and just go, I hope she doesn't say anything. I hope dad doesn't see anything on the text messages, or she's not texting one of her friends and talking about it and mom sees her phone. Like, just to think. Now, he also targeted girls that came from really rough environments and really bad upbringing. So maybe that wasn't always in the back of his mind, but these girls were going home every night, right? They weren't always, some of the girls that were on the island. And yes, you were on the island until basically Epstein wanted to take you back home. But if you really wanted to go home, it seemed like he would have just put you on a flight and took you home, or put you on a boat and sent you back home. Like, he didn't have, these girls weren't chained in his basement. Now, some of the people that, one of this guy's, his name was Juan, this guy was going into these third world villages and acquiring children and getting their parents to basically sign over rights to their children. And then he was able to get them visas and passports, and then able to get them on a flight. And he was literally flying in she said, basically like planes full of these children, these underage girls that were then paid to have sex with Epstein and his buddy. And that's why Pam Bondi probably says that Epstein was filmed having sex with these children, because as he was also filming and blackmailing the other people, he had the rooms all wired up, right? And he was having sex with the children in these orgies with other men on camera because he was filming everything. So there's definitely videos of Epstein, having sex with children, underage children. During that arrest in 2005, knowing all of this, the DA is basically told to stand down. And Nick Bryant says, he goes, there's only 2 people that have the ability to get a Southern District of Attorney General, the Attorney General of Florida, the Southern District Attorney General. There's only 2 people powerful enough to give that stand down order. One would be the Attorney General, and number 2 would be the president. Those are the only 2 people that can basically give that order. And he was given the order and told to stand down, to back off, because Epstein's he's an intelligence asset, which means that our government was protecting this man. And then what they did was Brian Gravy, I believe his name, I forget the attorney's name that was the attorney general at the time, but he punts this, says he wants to send it to a grand jury. The grand jury, because grand juries, I guess Nick says that you can't, if the American people knew how easy it was to just corrupt the grand jury and get a false verdict out of a grand jury, because I think it's who said it best? He's like, you can basically, with a grand jury, I can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. Basically, that's like the going punchline. So he gets it over to a grand jury. The grand jury, with all of this evidence, comes back and says not guilty, and that's when shit hits the fan. Right? They're like, oh, I forget what sheriff he was, but he was like the sheriff of Orange or whatever county they were in Florida, and he lost it. And Nick says, like, this is like the saving grace was this man. He's like, there's no way. So they ended up basically charging Epstein with 2 slaps on the wrist. One was acquiring a prostitute, and another one was acquiring a prostitute under the age of 14. And those were the 2 slaps on the wrist. He got 2 years. He gets 13 months he serves on house arrest. So Epstein is literally leaving prison and going and raping minor children and then coming back. And our government is well aware of this the entire time that it's happening. And it went on until there was like so much public outrage that people like lost their mind. I think he had to serve like a few months. He had to finish out a few months of his sentence in this prison. But Nick said, if you would have saw, if America would seen the prison cells where Epstein was at, it was like he had his own bachelor pad. Basically, like pretty much he was eating caviar, sitting on, on Egyptian cotton sheets, just living the life in this prison. When you're a billionaire, think about that. Think about what the prison guards make. 50,000, 75,000 a year. You don't think somebody like Epstein's like, yeah, take care of me. Here's what I want. Here's a list of everything. Here's $100,000, right? My team's going to take care of you. Like he was, it wasn't really prison. So this man, has been protected by our government for a very, very long time. And he even ties it into the Franklin scandal, which if you remember the Franklin scandal back in the day. And then that ties into the Finders cult. And these are just some crazy stories. I hope you can actually interview Nick Bryant, because I would love to actually watch that podcast, because this one's 3 years old. And I was just going through it and learning and consuming. And then Virginia also put out a book. So I think it came out in 2019 when Virginia Giuffre wrote her actual book. And the book that she wrote basically was like a tell-all memoir. And I think it's called The Billionaires Playboy Club by Virginia Giuffre. And it was published. It was never published, but it came up in a court document, in a court case. And I believe it got labeled as classified at one point, and it probably by design. So she wasn't actually able to release this because it was technically confidential and part of these ongoing investigations. Then it came up in another court case in 2020. And I think this is where some of the independent journalists who are really on this, and even some of the mainstream media, how we started to get all the names in the beginning, because she was naming all of these names. And then here it is. It's right here. I can't tell you. I sat here and I couldn't put this thing down. I read it cover to cover, and I don't read. I always get audiobooks, but this one I actually sat and read myself. And then I had to halfway audiobook it. But long story short, it details everything. So weeks before James O'Keefe put out this, because when she passed away, somehow a journalist got this, and I got in the DM. And I know somebody that was like on talking basis, like weekly talking to Virginia every week. And he didn't know about this book. He never read it. So I sat there and was like, wow, new book. I didn't know that it was already in these court cases. I thought it was something that she had left on her deathbed and it somehow got out. Well, I went through it and I documented every single time she said somebody's name in her book, like first and last name. I took screenshots of what she said in there, and I built this thread on Twitter. And I think it came up to like 13 or 14 clients all the way from, and Prince Andrew was one of them. So we put out the tweet about Prince Andrew about 2 weeks ago, just reminding everybody, like, these are the power players. There's tell-all books about this. There's the amount of victims. So Virginia in her book details how she would go out and recruit women for Epstein. So Epstein would basically be like, oh, we're going to New York next week, and you go shopping. And she would go out shopping, and it was their job. Just like these girls knew, they were so groomed that it didn't matter where they were. If they were getting coffee and they saw a cute girl, it was their job to go chat that girl up and offer to come over, and she would get a massage, to give Epstein a massage. And she says that when she was talking to the girl, she'd be like, oh, I got this really rich billionaire that I work for. I give him massages. Would you be interested in coming over? He'll pay you if you want to come give him a massage with me. And if the girls were like needed money and they were like all about it, she'd go, listen, sometimes we have to do it. We have to take our tops off. And then, sometimes we do a little bit extra after that. So just want to let you know what you're kind of getting yourself into. Not always, but most of the time that's how it ends out. And, the girls would agree. And she was just basically taking minor children back to Epstein to have orgies with them. And that's how he operated. And every time that he spoke with a girl, or anytime that he had Virginia go out and bring another girl back and they had sex, after they had sex, Epstein paid her, but then also got her phone number and put on her name and her number in his black book. And Nick Bryant published this, and the site is epsteinsblackbook.com, I believe. Let me pull up my X tweet here, but I'm pretty sure it's epsteinsblackbook.com. And you will actually see all of the list. There's 1,971 names on Epstein's black book. And journalists have had this. I mean, this was published in like 2012, I believe, was the first time that this book got published. And we had all of his names. So that's 1,971. And now some of them, he said like Clinton's number was in there. Hillary Clinton's number was in there, 20 different times. But this looks just names of people, and those all look like different people. So it looks like roughly 1,900. Now, some of those could be clients. Some of those could be, some of those could be, Clinton. They could be Obama's. They could be the whatever. I don't know if these are the all of these are victims or all of these are clients, but this just gives you an idea of how big this network was and potentially how many people that Epstein was blackmailing and or raping and or both. So it's big, man. It's so big and there's so much dirt and it goes back so long. But where you end up at,
like these are the names in his black book. I mean, this is insane.
This is where we need AI and we need people that are really talented at this. So, for example, we're going to get into this in a little bit, but all of these NGOs that are making all this money, every NGO has a board of directors. And on that board of directors, there's 8 people that are getting salaries of anywhere from $250,000 upwards of $1 million a year. I forget who broke the story last week. It was like Joe Rogan said, he's like, oh, this NGO he pulled up, 99% of the money didn't make, it was like a children donation fund or children cancer fund or something like that. And 99% of the money and funding went into paying the employees, the staff, the property, the investments, the this and that. And only 1% of the money that you donated actually made to actually help children. These NGOs that operated and turned our country into the child trafficking capital of the world, they all have board of directors. And we just did a reference. We had AI and you had to write this yourself. I had a friend that does Chat GPT-4 or whatever, and he's got it on his computer. So he's able to run these models that if we tried to run them ourselves, we couldn't even run. And we had him cross-reference every NGO that had received a penny in tax dollars over the last 4 years. And then we cross-reference, we had to grab a list and everybody that's on their board of directors. And then we took those names on the board of directors and we had it cross-reference, are any of these government employees or ex-government employees? And it was roughly like 7 out of 10 or 7 out of 8 were government employees and also connected to one religious organization that we can't see the word of. I'm not saying they were actually Jewish themselves, but they were either married to a Jew or they had Jewish heritage in their Wikipedia page. So what you're going to see here is why I think that a lot of these investigations won't ever make it, is because the people that are profiting from all of these are all connected to the same people that are on Epstein's list, the most powerful people in the world. And I don't personally think we're ever going to get this Epstein list. I'm gonna hammer it. I'm never going to give up. I'm going to keep speaking out about it because it just becomes more and more apparent that your country no longer works for you, America. That they are compromised. They are controlled by a foreign power, because Epstein didn't become Epstein without the protection of the CIA, State Department, Mossad. And I mean, he was wide out in the open with it. The one guy that was trafficking Virginia before her was driving around in downtown Miami with a 13-year-old topless in his Corvette with the top down and like driving into town showing off these children. Like, let that sink in. Like, these people are so brazen and so ballsy and think they are so untouchable, but those are the things that they're willing to do. I mean, Epstein was recruiting, and this will shock a lot of your audience, but Virginia was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago. There's like 2 or 3 victims at least that we know about that were recruited from Mar-a-Lago. So Epstein, this was probably, obviously, I think at one point Trump banned him from Mar-a-Lago, if I'm not mistaken, but there was still a point where he was like, that was the hunting ground. So is there more to this story that, maybe makes Trump look a little bit bad or Mar-a-Lago look bad and he doesn't want that stench on it? I don't know, but you can't tell me that Pam Bondi is the attorney general from 2011 to 2019, literally weeks after. I mean, it might have been a couple months after she left office, but it wasn't long after before Epstein ended up in prison. And she took office in 2011. He was sentenced to jail in when? 2008, 2-year sentence, almost getting out in 2010. You mean to tell me that the most prolific serial sex trafficking man in the history of the world that is you're giving a stand down order from somebody so high up, you're told to punt that case? You don't think that the next attorney general that came in was like talking to the previous attorney general about Epstein? You don't think she knew who he was? You don't think she was told to stand down as well? So for her entire career, Epstein operated in Florida, in the state of Florida, and was raping thousands of minor children right on her front doorstep. And she did nothing to ever look into it further, to ever hold this man accountable. What is Pam Bondi hiding? And this makes me really think that maybe Trump picked her for a reason. Maybe he knew that what we're all starting to come to realize, that Pam Bondi has been playing an intricate role in protecting the clients on Epstein's list. Now, who gave her that order? I don't know. Not sure. But, Trump was sure in office, and I'm sure it wasn't Trump. So was it William Barr? And that's what this guy really ties in exactly how William Barr kind of fits into this puzzle, because he played a role in something in the Franklin scandal. And then he also played a role in the Epstein cover up as well. So I don't know if we're going to get to the bottom of it, but that's kind of what I got to say.
Gosh, it's just crazy. Well, so let's okay, so we're looking at what we've established here is that there's this massive child sex trafficking ring that our intelligence agencies are absolutely involved with. And this goes back to, if you look at, KGB, or you look at some of the CCP, I mean, this is nothing new, right? I mean, this is like blackmail, using kids for blackmail. I think KGB, like they perfected a lot of these operations. Like it was, like that was a big part of their operation was, pedophile related blackmail, right? But looking at our government, okay, and with what you said before, is that the United States government runs the world's largest child sex trafficking operation. I mean, to me, it's for people that live in America that are good people, which I think most Americans are good people. I think most people on earth are actually good people, right? It's only about, I think, was it 4% of the population of the world are what people would refer to as sociopaths, right? People that don't have any, like they could, kill somebody, or they could hurt a small child or whatever, and feel no remorse, feel no empathy. But you look at our government, that this is the government of America, right? Like that is running this. Like, why don't you walk us through a little bit of how this is operating, kind of fast forwarding a little bit to, from Epstein being arrested initially and that whole case, but kind of taking us up to the modern day right here, even look at the past, say, 4.5 years with the open border, looking at the child trafficking. Let's kind of hone in on that a little bit, because to me, that's what paints a picture that is so just massively disturbing. So let's kind of transition to that. So walk us through when you say that, and not just you, like the whistleblowers that you've worked with, say that the United States government is running the world's largest child sex trafficking network. What does that look like? Like it's too hard. It's almost like it's too hard to comprehend. It's so big.
Yeah, and actually, you can do me a favor while I'm talking about that. You can grab that clip from RFK, because I think that'll really drive home everything that I'm saying that he had at the cabinet meeting with Trump last week. So I want to start off too. We got 1,200 watching this live stream. If you guys could do us a huge solid, if we can get probably another couple hundred likes, it'll instantly put this video up on the leaderboard, and it'll really help push out this video to the algorithm. So do us a huge favor and smash that like button, because it would be nice to get a couple thousand people in here, because I'm going to break down exactly how our government was running the world's largest child trafficking network from start to finish. So hopefully you guys are ready. So this started on day one of Biden's administration. Joe Biden signs 93 executive orders on day one, obliterating Trump's immigration policy. So everything that Trump had did to give Biden the most secure border in the world in the history of America, that's what Joe Biden was handed on day one. He signs 93 executive orders obliterating Trump's immigration policy. All of this is Mayorkas's brainchild. So let me be very clear. Anytime you see Mayorkas in a congressional hearing or talking to one of our congressional candidates, or anytime he's in a room, that man is the smartest man in the room. He's the youngest AUSA ever elected or installed, I guess, if you will, or appointed. The man is a genius. Everything we saw Joe Biden, you heard the auto pen scandal, right? He didn't plan any of this. This was all Mayorkas is doing. And Mayorkas had some help. So what Mayorkas does is, through policy and through these executive orders, creates this public-private partnership with Mexican cartels. And then we have Xavier Becerra, who was also the Attorney General of California, who filed more lawsuits against the Trump administration related to border issues than anybody else. So we have Xavier Becerra, who gets appointed to HHS. Then we have Robin Marcos, who gets appointed to ORR. So Alejandro Mayorkas and DHS create this public-private partnership with the Mexican cartels. And then Xavier Becerra and Robin Marcos create this public-private partnership with the NGOs. And together they turn America into the child kidnapping and child trafficking capital of the world. And that is what led these policy decisions, and this open border policy led to 452,121 migrant children. These are children ages 0 to 17 that have arrived at our border without a parent. And once a migrant child arrives at our border without a parent, they instantly, the second they step foot on USA soil, they become property of the United States government. So what we saw was, within the first couple of days, we started, if your audience just gets on YouTube and they just search cartel drops child over border wall, what they're going to see is they're going to see CTV after CTTV after CTTV. And what you're going to see is you're going to see cartels literally just bringing children over the border wall. And you would think, like, if you're a cartel member, let me ask your audience this while you're pulling up these videos. if he were to search cartel drops AR-15s over border wall, cartels drop fentanyl over border wall, you might see a few videos here and there, but you're not going to see this pattern of just hundreds and hundreds. Now, YouTube might have censored some of these too, because I've been saying this in quite a few of my documentaries. Boom, there you go. Got one. So these, I believe, are 4 and 5-year-old girls that they are dropping. They literally just hang them over. They dangle them. So think about this. This is merchandise to these cartels. They are trafficking children from 180 different nations, are getting trafficked into Mexico. And once they get into Mexico, they then are embedded with the cartels. And the cartels will traffic these children all the way across the country. And when they get them to the border, when they have arrived at the border, when they just drop that child, when the Border Patrol, and where they're dropping them at where they have the CCTVs, where they have Trump installed night vision and ground sensors, and these are the most heavily patrolled areas of the border. They want these children to be found. They don't want anything bad to happen to these children because they're their merchandise. So what happens is as the Border Patrol picks up that child, it's the Border Patrol agent's job to process that child. And what the cartels realize is now all they have to do is they have to brand the children like cattle. And you'll see children arrive at the border, and on their name tag, and this is just a sheet of paper that's safety pinned to their shirt in a little Ziploc baggie so it doesn't get wet. And it'll have a name, an address, and a phone number on that. Or if they can't find paper, they'll literally get out a Sharpie and they'll write it on the child's arm in permanent marker, a name, an address, and a phone number. So when Border Patrol receives that child, it's the Border Patrol agent's job. It's part of the policy for him to not ask any questions about being trafficked or who wrote that number on your name, or if was that a cartel that you owe money to, or anything of the sort. Their job is just to put that information in the child's file as a sponsor. So then from there, after he checks in the kid and makes sure the kid doesn't need any immediate medical attention or clothes or some food, right? They're not just asking these questions and just shipping these kids off. They kind of, make sure they're all right. But then they call the HHS and they say, hey, we got a kid who's ready for pickup. HHS calls an NGO. NGO goes and picks up the child and transports them to an HHS intake facility. Once at the HHS intake facility, they do an initial intake screening of the child to determine if the child's been sexually abused or trafficked. Because if they are, they're supposed to follow a protocol for those type of children. They're supposed to get immediate attention and counseling and all the other things that you would give to somebody who's been sexually traumatized. They don't get any of those. They don't do any of that. The questions are just a pretty much complete waste of time. But after they quote unquote interview the child, it's then their job to try to reunify the child with the sponsor. So the sponsor, again, is this name and this phone number and address that was just wrote on the child's name on an arm by a cartel member on a permanent marker. Now, before I go any further, I want to show you guys this ID. So this is a New York ID. I bought off a Venezuelan gangbanger. It took me 15 minutes. You can see that's my photo. If I move my finger behind here, you can see it actually has the hologram behind here. So you can see my finger through the ID. It looks real, right? So now what HHS is going to do is they're going to contact me. They're going to call that number and they're going to say, hey, Seth, are you expecting a child? You're going to go, oh, I am. Yeah. Oh, okay. What's its name? And you're going to go, oh, it's Jamie. And, they ask you his name and a birthday, her name and birthday. You're going to say it's Jamie and it's 10/10/21. And they're going to go, congratulations, Seth, you just won an FRA application. Then you're going to go online. You're going to fill out this FRA application, which is basically a job resume. And I actually just got some of these. I just had somebody bring me 33 of the addresses of where they delivered these children to. So your audience should buckle up because we're going to start going door to door and showing you the environments that these children were delivered into. But in that process, they're communicating with John Smith here. This is an ID I bought off a Venezuelan gangbanger in New York City in 15 minutes. It took me 15 minutes to get a complete new identity. And then I had his phone number and I put out a video. So this is all, you can fact check it. It's on my X. And I contact him because when you get the ID, he walks up to you on the street. He's like, IDs, Social Security. And I was with my buddy Carlos, guy speaks Spanish. Carlos said, yeah, we need IDs. He's like, all right, great. Walk over there with him. He's like, what do you want your name to be? And what do you want your address to be? And I'm like, I didn't even think that. I'm like, John Smith, like who gets a fake ID and says John Smith? I'm like, I feel like such an idiot. He's like, and this is all on camera because I have a hidden camera glasses on. He's like, what do you want the address to be? And I was like, I didn't even, I got it was so easy to get an ID that I hadn't even we're like, oh yeah, let's go get a fake ID. We didn't even normally we're game planning this out. We'll go in, we'll have a drink, we'll sit down, we'll set up our cameras, make sure our batteries are good, everything's charged up. And we'll be like, okay, here's the game plan. We'll go out. We didn't even get that far. We were the first block we walked on. We pretty much got approached by a guy giving a new identity. I got his phone number because after you go and he takes your picture, you have to wait 45 minutes. So while you're waiting, he's like, yeah, just come back in 45. He's out there in the corner hustling. He doesn't want you killing his clientele. So long story short, I get this new, calls me back. So then after I got home, I reached out and I was like, hey bro, I was like, hey, can you get passports, documents or passports, birth certificates, social security cards or anything else? because I got a lot of clients I can probably sell these to. And he's like, oh, absolutely, bro. Anything you need. I go, can you ship them too? He goes, oh, absolutely. So basically I would send him, $100 Cash App or whatever it was. And then he would basically mail me whatever documents and IDs. So now all I have to do is get a cartel member to put this name, this made up address, right? I'm not going to actually take them to, I'm not going to give away my actual address where I'm trafficking this child to. I'm going to use a fake address, but I'm going to use a burner phone as well. So I just have any cartel member that can put that information on a child's arm. And now I can acquire that child. So what these cartels realize is that because of these policies, our government had taken over the most two dangerous legs of the journey for the child trafficker. So when you talk about child trafficking, there's two really dangerous parts of the journey for the actual trafficker. Second most dangerous is bringing the merchandise across the border. And the first most dangerous is delivering that merchandise to a buyer in America. If you are a human or child trafficker, those are the two areas where you have the strongest probability of being busted. This is why people like Tim Ballard are so adamant about we have to secure that border. Tim Ballard, he's in one of my he's actually in Operation Amber Alert documentaries. I was with him in Texas. I was with him in California. We were going to Mexico to rescue some of the children that were coming, a rescue mission to rescue the children from the documentary, Save the Children. They've grown up and they're being chased out of Colombia by the cartels and were on the run, fleeing to America to claim asylum. And we went down the border to meet them. And when I was down there with Tim, he told me that I said, well, let me ask you this. Let's say Trump comes in today and, we basically go out and save all 350,000 children. How quick would it be before there was 350,000 more missing children? He goes, almost instantly. He goes, if you don't close that border, no matter what you did to take down the network that's operating in America, it would be sprung right back up the next day because it's so profitable and there's so much money in it. And again, then you get into the blackmailing aspect of it. And then you get into the politicians and then you get the amount of power that these cartels have, because it's not just Epstein that's compromising these scumbags, right? You have to assume that there's other sick pedophiles out there that have power and connections and are willing to blackmail these politicians too. So long story short, 350,000 children. Our government took possession of 452,121 migrant children. They vetted the adult. Let me remind you, now 90% of these are illegal immigrants.
Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. Something kind of screwed up. I guess it's part of being live. Anyway, continue though.
I'm glad we were able to jump back in that stream. Sometimes you can't get back into them. So that's awesome.
Yes.
And do me a favor, smash that like button. So our government took possession of 452,000 children. They then vetted the adult, and 90% of these adults were the undocumented illegal immigrants who literally just invaded our country. All of them, right? We saw all of them ditching their IDs at the border. So let that sink in. Our government was also accepting RENAP IDs. So if you're a foreigner and you come to America and you lose your birth certificate, you need to get a copy of it. You can go onto a site called RENAP, which RENAP is like very well known for giving out fraudulent documents, where you can just basically get any type of ID, any type of document. The system's really easy to basically trick this system and get fake documents. So HHS was accepting RENAP documents as verified forms of identification. They were accepting birth certificates that didn't have a photo on it that expired 2 years ago as a verifiable form of identification. So our government vetted 350,000 adults, mostly males, and then authorized the delivery of minor children. 70%, almost 80%, have been raped and sexually assaulted on their way to America. And we don't properly vet this man, and then we authorize a delivery of one of the most vulnerable children in the world to this scumbag. And now our government can't find 350,000 children. Now, you can play that clip right now if you got the RFK one, just so your audience, a lot of people probably think I'm crazy and this is all a lie, but I have 3 full-length documentaries out that have all the receipts in them. But watch RFK right here tell you.
We have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration. We have.
So he's saying that HHS as the principal vector for child trafficking in America, especially under the Biden administration.
This is not your government. Like the director of HHS just told you that HHS was the main conduit for child trafficking in America. They were the number one vector. So our government, HHS, was literally out trafficking the cartels, the most profitable and most powerful cartels in the world. And our government is running circles around them because what they did is they figured out how the prison industrial complex profits off humans. And they realized that they've been trying to get a for-profit child prison system set up like they do for our adults, and they couldn't do it. But lo and behold, what did they do here with these migrant children? They literally created a child migrant prison industrial complex where your government with open borders would have an unrelenting stream of children. And then they're getting paid $650 to $775 per day per child inside these NGOs, inside these facilities. And if people don't think that that money, that these NGOs weren't in bed with these cartels, and cartels are just going to literally bring merchandise to the border and just go, here you go. We're just going to give you a 5-year-old kid that we just trafficked. No, that's their merchandise. You'll never see cartel members dropping AK-47s and just, oh, we're going to take them to the most heavily patrolled part of the border by Border Patrol with ground sensors and night vision. And we're just going to dump AR-15s over the border because that's what cartels do, right? No, they don't. You even see, we've said it in our first documentary that when this is all comes down, if we get to the bottom of it, you're going to see that this wasn't just some invasion, that this was a full-scale military operation being carried out by every level of your government, all the way from the president of the United States, all the way down to local law enforcement on the border. And just last week, yesterday, they just arrested 3 National Guardsmen or Border Patrol agents for trafficking children. So they were working with the cartels, trafficking children. So it's every level of our government is so rotted to the core. And this would be so easy to fix. This would be so easy to solve. I could go out tomorrow and I could, if I had access to the UC portal and had access to the information that our government has access to, I could bring home at least, and if I had a team of people I could put together, I could probably bring home 2,500 to 5,000 children per day, every day, until I brought home all. I would say there's probably only left 250,000, maybe out of the 350,000 that vanished, right? And your audience has to understand how, when we talk about trafficking, once a child is delivered into a trafficking pipeline, their life expectancy goes from 72 years, depending on country, it's all different, but the average, I believe, is 72 years to 24 to 36 months. And that's me being generous. People like Alex Jones will tell you it's 18 months. Other countries, it probably is 18 months. You know, if they go disappearing in Colombia, probably their life expectancy is a little bit lower than here in America. But let's give it the benefit of the doubt and say it's 34 months, or say it's 36 months, which would be 3 years. Once your audience will probably have seen the movie Trafficked, right? Where when the guy's daughter gets kidnapped, he sets a stop clock and he goes, I have 36 hours to bring my daughter home, or there's less than a 1% chance I'll ever see her alive again. Because after that 36 hours, she hits that pipeline. And once she hits that pipeline, she's gone. And her life expectancy is going to go down from 72 years to 24 to 36 months, because their poor, fragile little bodies can't sustain the extended abuse for those long periods of time. We're talking about little girls. The one that they rescued was 5. She was 7. She was 5 when she disappeared. She was chained in a man's basement. Every day that man let 7 to 10 men come in there and gang rape her, or just rape her. And at the end of the night, he would take her plate of food and he would throw her food on the floor and he would rape her. And after he was done raping her, he would put a cigarette butt out in her arm. And when they rescued this girl, her arms were just solid scars, right? And they asked why he did that. And he said, well, I just wanted to make sure that if she ever escaped or you guys ever arrested me, that every time that girl looked down at her arm, she was reminded of how I brutally, savagely raped her. So these are the environments. And, think about that poor little girl. You think this guy's making these men wear condoms? Hell no, he's not. So how long is it before that poor little girl's riddled with STDs? And you think they're going to take her to the emergency room to get the medication she needs? No, they're not going to take her there. And then what happens when the man gets rough with her and breaks her jaw? Then you got a 7-year-old with a broken jaw. You think she's going to get surgery? You think they're going to wire her jaw shut at the hospital and just not ask any questions? Absolutely not. She's not going there. She'll be either discarded or sold off for organ harvesting or worse, satanic ritual sacrifice. And these are the environments that these children are going into. So Tim Ballard, for example, they rescued a girl that testified in front of Congress in one of the oversight hearings. They estimated that she had been raped 60,000 times in a 3 to 4 year captivity. And guess who rescued her? Herself, right? Our government didn't. even you talk to some of the experts, and they actually think that some of these women that are being sex trafficked and pimped out are actually safer with their pimp, because when they're with their pimp, you know, not all of these pimps are horrible, right? Like Epstein was flying around these girls on private jets, and they were going out to balls, and he was buying them dresses and cars and luxury, everything like this, and they could come and go and free as they want. So not all of these traffickers are doing horrible damage. I mean, they're definitely doing psychological damage, but once our government gets a hold of these people, they're just a dollar sign. It's why CPS only takes care of children until they're 18, and they literally kick them out in the streets, because the second that they can't profit off them anymore, they have no use for them. They don't care how that child, when that child turns 18, there's no follow-up, there's no checking in. CPS doesn't care what happens to that child. They're actually better off, because if he's a drug addict or he ends up on the street, then he's going to go into the prison system. They could profit off him for another 10 or 20 years. So our government doesn't help any women or children. They don't. Every organization that has been designed or created, everything from La Casa, and I'm sure La Casa probably helps a few women that are, you know, my ex went to La Casa and got some help one time because one of her exes was beating her, you know? So sure, they probably do offer a little bit of help, but a majority of the time it's one giant money laundering grift. And what you see is that these organizations that were once set out to help children or help women have now become predator magnets. They literally are attracting pedophiles because, again, like we said earlier, why would you go out and try to kidnap a child to have sex with him, and then you have to keep him chained in the basement when you could just have unlimited access to children that are going to get shipped? I mean, when you're when you're at, you know, one of the team leaders, you know when these kids are getting transferred out of your facility, you know they're not coming back anymore, and they don't speak English. So what? You get her in a room, you get to have your way with her. Who's she going to tell? She can't talk to anybody. Even the apps. There's one kid that had spoke one of these Haitian dialects, and his mother was actually on the outside trying to get him. And when she called the facility, Southwest Key Programs, to get her child, they wouldn't let her get her, because when they came across the border, she had already had a passport, and she went back home to get her kid because her kid was sick. She brought her sick kid back here and the nanny because she couldn't have somebody taking care of him in Guatemala because the kid just kept getting too sick and they couldn't balance his medication. So the mom went back to Guatemala, made the journey from Guatemala, trained to death with her son and her nanny. And then she was going to work while the nanny watched the kid here in America, but she couldn't come across the border with the child because she had already had a birth certificate. So she went through the port of entry, or a passport. So she went through the port of entry the normal way. And then she had her nanny claim to be the aunt and walk across with the child. Well, because it wasn't the mother, they have to separate them. Excuse me. And they put this kid into these long-term care, because then now the mother is calling and saying, hey, I want to get my son. And then you have to fill out the FRA application, right? Even though you're the mother, you still have to go through the same process as the trafficker. So the kid was in there for like 6 days, and she had went 3 days without talking to her son. And when they finally let her talk to her son, it was because he was really, really sick and they didn't know what to do. Well, the NGOs couldn't communicate with the kid. So they didn't know that he was sick. He couldn't tell them that he was sick. He couldn't tell them that he needed his medication, right? All of these things, they weren't giving him his medication. So they almost killed her son. And I told him, we're getting ready to go stage a protest and actually be like, you know, we got a kid in here being held hostage by our government. They won't release him to the mother. But I'm like, that's going to completely blow whatever. If you got a green card or whatever you have here, like our government's going to come down and crush you once you go that route. So we can wait. And I'm not saying your kid is safe in this environment, but I'm saying that there's a chance that you're actually probably going to get your kid back. So why don't we wait 2 weeks if you get your kid back? Because I'm not trying to get a few clicks and destroy a family or destroy this woman's life or put this child in a worth environment. I don't need the clicks that bad. So I was just like, let's help you and wait 2 weeks. And she ended up getting her kid back a couple weeks later. But those are the environments that these kids are in. So picture that kid, right? If somebody sexually assaulted or raped that kid, who's he going to tell, right? And is the mom really going to fly back down from wherever she's in New York now or Philadelphia to go try to press charges against somebody at one of these facilities? I don't know. Probably not, very likely. So the reason I just got back from Texas was we had last month, Pam Bondi's first month in office, she drops a lawsuit. So it got so bad inside these facilities that so many of these children were being raped by the employees inside, the staff members at these facilities, that Merrick Garland's DOJ had to file a lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs. And they just went from 2015 to 2023, and they compiled a list of all the children who had been sexually assaulted by employees inside these facilities. And it's one facility after the next. Southwest Key Programs operated, I think, 56 facilities all across the state of, all across America. ORR was in charge of managing 290 of these facilities. So your government was paying for these type of facilities, 290 of them to operate. And every single one, children were being raped by staff members, literally every single one. So here's the lawsuit, right? If you scroll down a little bit, and it's right in that first paragraph, it says lawsuit and it's blue. If you click that lawsuit button, the hyperlink there, this will actually pull up the actual lawsuit. So do me a favor, scroll down. Oh, no, hit complaint. Sorry, it's in the first paragraph again, complaint. That'll pull up the actual lawsuit. And now you can see, so this is the United States District Court versus Southwest Key Programs. If you scroll all the way down to page 9 for me. Yep. That's where it starts off. So this was just says Southwest Key is required. So it goes on. So right here at 34, it says Southwest Key. These are the sexual abuse and harassments at Southwest Key CASA, right? So Southwest Key has engaged in a pattern or a practice of severe or pervasive sexual harassment of children in its care. From 2015, continuing through at least the end of 2023, Southwest received complaints concerning the sexual abuse and harassment of children at a majority of its CASAs, or its houses, right? So Southwest Key has failed to follow its own policies for preventing, detaining, and responding to the sexual abuse and harassment, and likewise failed to consistently follow ORR's policies to prevent, detect, and respond to sexual abuse and harassment in its shelters, despite ORR having issued multiple corrective actions. So right, what we got here, and I want to go down to page 10 after this, is they're setting the groundwork saying that it got so bad that ORR was forced to go into these NGOs and provide them additional training and build protocols like no employees allowed in a child's room alone, like things like that, that prevent these children from ever being in an environment where they're alone with one of these people. But so right here at 38, go down to page 10 for me. Okay, right here. So since at least 2015, multiple Southwest Key employees, including supervisory and non-supervisory employees, have subjected children living in Southwest Key shelter care homes and services to pervasive and unwelcome sexual abuse and harassment, including documented by Southwest Key reports that include, but not limited to, employees penetrating sexual assault and rape of children, including sexual contact in the manner of genital to genital or oral to genital, employees intentionally touching either directly or through the clothing, the genital, anus, groin, breast, inner thigh, or buttocks of children, employees soliciting, coercing, and including the above desired acts with children, employees soliciting, requesting, coercing, and inducing nude and sexually explicit photos of children. And it goes on. So go to the next page, page 11. Oh, actually, go right there at the very top at 40, right there. Yes. So Southwest Key's own document reports numerous examples of sexual abuse and harassment of children by employees. For example, one Southwest Key report describes a Southwest Key youth care worker who in 2022 repeatedly sexually abused a 5-year-old girl, an 8-year-old girl, and an 11-year-old girl at Casa Franklin in El Paso, Texas. The 8-year-old girl disclosed that the youth care worker repeatedly entered their bedroom in the night to touch their private areas and then threatened to kill their families if they disclosed the abuse. Next case, 42. Another Southwest Key report describes a Southwest Key shift leader, a supervisory employee who in 2019 repeatedly raped, abused, and threatened a teenage girl throughout her shelter stay at Casa Montezuma in Channelview, Texas. The child reported this abuse by passing a note to her teacher one day that she knew that the shift leader was out of the country on vacation. Her note stated that the shift leader was having sex with her at the shelter and threatening to kill her, or threatening her to remain silent. She wrote in Spanish that's translated to, "He can do whatever he wants because he's the shift leader." She reported that she believed that not only him, but other employees were protecting that shift leader because, among other things, he would regularly switch shifts and assignments with other staff so that he could be alone with her. And then it goes on. Go down to the next one. It just goes on to document that one a little bit more. 43. So numerous Southwest Key reports detail a Southwest Youth Key worker who in 2020 absconded with a 15-year-old boy from Casa Cocopelli in Arizona. The Southwest Youth Key worker took the boy to a hotel room for several days where the youth care worker paid him for sex acts. The youth care worker was indicted in Maricopa County, that's funny, supervisory court with multiple felony counts of sexual conduct. So this is the lawsuit, right? And you scroll down, just keep scrolling. I mean, we would be here for 30 minutes plus for me just to read off case after case after case after case. So this is the lawsuit that Merrick Garland's DOJ had to file, right?
So this is Southwest Key Programs, right? So what is this an NGO or is it what is Southwest Key Programs?
Non-governmental organization. So after the child goes from Border Patrol to the end, or sorry, goes from the Border Patrol to HHS. Now, HHS, the child can only stay in HHS's care for 14 days by law, or the child have the ability to sue HHS or something like that. Trump put in some law that basically they only keep these children inside these facilities for 14 days after.
So this is the company right here, right?
There you go. Yep.
Southwest Key. I mean, you go to their website and it's like, oh, okay. They have youth and family services. They, here's their leadership team. It's like, oh, okay, great.
Insane.
It's you look at this and you're like, oh, okay, great. Maybe I'd even donate to them, right? Like it's like,
exactly. Wow,
like what a mission. They're opening doors to opportunities so individuals can achieve their dreams of being raped as a kid, right?
Yep. I call them rape. I used to call them child migrant concentration camps. Now I just call them child rape dungeons because that's what they've turned into, right? It is an absolute nightmare for these children. So Pam Bondi's first few weeks in office, right? She drops this lawsuit, right? It's almost so hard to wrap your head around because the first thing you start going through your head is like, okay, well, maybe there would be some reason that they would drop it because they needed to build up something bigger. And
wait, sorry. So wait, the previous DOJ, right, under Biden, they had a lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs, right, which we talked about. We went through like rampant cases of staff workers raping children in their care, and so then Pam Bondi gets rid of that lawsuit, like she kind of closes the book on it. That doesn't make sense.
March 16th. Pam Bondi's administration puts out a letter that says that they are dropping the lawsuit into Southwest Key Programs. And if you just search DOJ drops lawsuit into Southwest Key Programs, you can probably pull up a couple articles on it. And to summarize it, basically says that, well, since Southwest Key Programs no longer has the ability to receive or care for children, that we are going to drop this lawsuit. It is like it's almost embarrassing. You can't really wrap your head around why in any reality, because some people will go, oh, well, that lawsuit had nothing to do with getting financial pay for the children. Well, if you just Google again, I mean, it'll take you a minute to find it, but you don't have to do it. But if you just Google DOJ files lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs, I published a screenshot a couple days ago on my X that shows that they were getting that the lawsuit was designed to get compensation for these children, right? So why would you drop this lawsuit? A slam dunk lawsuit. Like this thing would have been over with in a matter of seconds. And then she drops it and she says, well, we're dropping it because Southwest Keys isn't going to get children anymore. So that was their logic behind why we weren't going to get any justice for these children. It almost baffles your mind. Then last week, an email leaks out from Southwest Key Programs. It's going out to all employees saying that they're calling back 5,000 employees to come back to work and receive additional training from ORR at the facility, at that Brownsville facility in Texas. And this Brownsville facility was a Walmart that held 1,200 boys between the ages of 13 and 17. And why the question we had to ask is, and we went down for a protest down there. And actually, I can send you the link to this video, but of me outside of this facility, so your audience can kind of have an idea. Let me pull this up here. Give me 2 seconds to pull it up. But yeah, so we went down there because we're like, oh, we're going to stage a protest. Why would you ever be calling these employees back to work if you did not plan to why would you be calling employees back to work for training if you didn't plan to bring them back to work? And the answer is you can't really wrap your head around. You can't come up with a logical reason on why you would do that. So we went down there and what did we find? We found out that they got employees there. They have staff members on the grounds. The buildings were being well kept, like they were getting ready to make these things go operational again. So we think that Pam Bondi dropped that lawsuit. They could sweep this under the rug and there wasn't this big stigma or open lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs so they could justify, giving them children again. The only thing you could think of.
Gosh, absolutely insane.
Yeah, so I just sent you that video over there. And this video is me, Hernando Arce, and Bonnie Rice. Bonnie Rice is one of the world's leading experts in child trafficking. She was one of the HHS case coordinators who was processing these children. She was one of the whistleblowers that came forward. And she was the first one to break the story that out of those children, those 350,000 children, somebody came forward with a list of addresses. And she started just to cross-reference some of these addresses and look into some of the ones that stuck out. And within like a few hours, she found 4 strip clubs that our government vetted the adult male, authorized the delivery of that man after doing the background check, after the ID I showed you, right? So they use Google Earth. The case coordinators are receiving these IDs via WhatsApp too. That's the craziest part. They're not scanning them. They're not using Interpol. They're not using, any type of law enforcement technology that our government has to do background checks and actually verify that this isn't a legit ID or even verify. I could, every bar you go into, they can pretty much scan your ID. You go to a gas station right now, you can't even buy a can of chew, even if you look 40, if you don't have an ID because they have to scan the ID. So you mean to tell me that our government didn't have any way for them to take a picture of an ID and scan this barcode on the back of it? BS. Absolutely, they could. They could have verified these people were legit. But yeah, if you want to play that, you'll see what I'm talking about.
We are coming at you live from Brownsville, Texas, outside the Southwest Key Programs facility. This NGO was responsible for allowing their employees to rape hundreds of migrant children were raped inside facilities ran by Southwest Key Programs that look just like this. So it got so bad, America, that Merrick Garland's DOJ had to file a lawsuit against Southwest Key Programs because they failed to implement the protocols that would prevent migrant children from being raped inside these facilities. And guess who dropped that lawsuit? Pam Bondi. Now, I've heard people tell me, well, that my lawsuit wasn't going to compensate the children. Well, that's not what the news articles reported when they first broke the story when Merrick Garland's DOJ filed that lawsuit. But guess who dropped that lawsuit? Pam Bondi. Now, Pam Bondi dropped it, and she told us that the reason that these children don't deserve to be compensated because Southwest Key Programs, a company who received $2.89 billion worth of our tax dollars over the last 4 years, you know, they don't have to pay the children to make the children whole because they're not going to receive children anymore. And that's what you see here. You see a ghost, a completely vacant parking lot. Well, just last week, we got a leaked email that was sent out to all the Southwest Key employees from ORR stating that on April 24th of 2025, their employees were to return back to work to receive additional training from ORR. So let me ask you this, America. If you weren't planning on giving Southwest Key Programs the ability to handle migrant children again, why would you be bringing their staff members back to work and then telling those staff members that they're going to be eligible to get 401ks and bonuses and health care benefits if you weren't planning on opening this facility again and staffing it with children? And even if you're going to go, oh, well, the Afghan refugees, oh, well, this, oh, well, that. They were letting their employees rape migrant children. So let's just say they're going to play a role in deporting these people. You mean to tell me that you trust this employee with women that we're going to deport? You expect the employees that were raping migrant children that were getting shipped into America to not be raping the women as they're getting deported out of America? I don't buy it for 1 second. Under no circumstances should Southwest Key Programs ever be allowed to have migrant children or deal with any adults in any way, shape, or form ever again. And I just want you to take a look, America. Look at these vans. See these vans? I mean, they pretty much outline the entire perimeter of this facility, all the way around. All the way in the back, you see way, way back over there in the distance, you see more vans. They're around the entire facility. And when I tell you that every parking lot was filled, there's just 720 parking spots that I can freaking see. On the back side of this building, there's another overflow parking lot back there. They have soccer fields. I'm telling you, America, our government is dropping the ball. Where are the 300,000 migrant children that RFK just told us were being sex trafficked by our government? We are living in the only country in the world where your government openly admits to sex trafficking children, and nobody's been arrested for sex trafficking. No traffickers, no buyers. Where are the 300,000 children? And better question yet, when you claim you find these children, where are you putting them? Are you putting them back in these rape dungeons? Because the experts that I talk to that do this for a living haven't been contacted by our government. The people that should be the people they should be putting in charge of an operation at this scale where we're going to go rescue 300,000 children, all of them, we have to assume have been raped and sexually assaulted because 70% of them were sexually assaulted on their way to America. So after we delivered them into this hellhole and they were getting raped by employees at these facilities, and then we handed them over into a country that is the #1 consumer of child porn, the #1 consumer of child rape, the #1 consumer of child ritual sacrifice, and now our government can't find any of these children. And after we go find them, what, we're going to bring them back and put them in the rape dungeons where the employees were raping them prior? I don't think so, America. Share this content and let Pam Bondi know that we're watching her ass. And we want to know, are these corporations and the scumbags who operated these corporations going to be brought to justice? These children deserve justice and they deserve compensation because we trafficked them into America. We created the pipeline. We delivered them. We forced them to go into these facilities. Even when they had parents outside that wanted their children back, we said, under no circumstances are you getting your child back. They're going to stay here because we're going to take $675 to $750 per day per child, and we're going to profit off every single one of these children before we even can contemplate giving them back to their parents.
Absolutely insane. I mean,
look, if you got, I sent you another one just so your audience can see. This was 2 years ago. This is what that parking lot looked like.
Sorry, how did you send it to me? Because can you actually, can you?
Yeah, I sent it to you on X.
Oh, okay. Let me check real quick.
Would that work? I'm going to send it to you that way. That works.
That's the best, actually. I'll pull it up.
Right now.
I mean, it's just absolutely, it's mind blowing that, like, what I'm piecing together with this is that, so our government has all this money coming in through taxpayers, and not just taxpayer money. I mean, they're just running the printer, right? Like who cares? They've got billions and billions, like not to mention the trillions have gone missing, right? That's going into military black budgets and space and who knows what. But they're taking this money, they're sending this money in huge amounts to all these NGOs, right? Save the Children. I know Jewish Family Services is one of the big ones involved with the border. Southwest Key Programs, the Catholic charities. So they're sending all this money to these NGOs where there's rampant child abuse. They're tied into these trafficking networks, and then these kids are being sold. They're being sold for their organs. They're being sold for sex trafficking. That they've got cartel networks in here. We know the CPS is its own kind of child trafficking network. I mean, it's just mind blowing. And that's the thing is, like, and you mentioned it too in the video. Where are the arrests? Like when I see that video of RFK Jr. and he's sitting there saying, "Yeah, the HHS was what, like the principal vectors for child trafficking." Like, well, who's going to be arrested? Who was running the HHS? Who were the principals of that? Like in this, and maybe look, we're like, a little over 100 days in to the new administration. Maybe they're building this massive case, and maybe at some point we're going to see all these key figures arrested. We're going to see Mayorkas and, all these different people are going to be brought in on charges, like, crimes against humanity. Maybe like Gitmo's going to be packed like an NFL stadium for the Super Bowl. Maybe. But so far, all I'm hearing is excuses. Can't be done yet. It's more complicated than you think. And it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Actually, here's the other video.
We're down here in Brownsville, Texas. Behind me is a child migrant facility where they are actually trafficking children. The United States government is involved with trafficking children across our border. So when Border Patrol, I guess, gets a hold of children that have no parents, this is stop number one. This is down here in Brownsville, Texas. That building that you're looking at behind me, owned by Southwest Key Corporation. Am I saying that right, Carlos?
Yes.
Southwest Key Corporation is housing over 2,000 migrants. 2,000 migrant children, all boys between the ages of 13 and 17 are in that building. Now, if I'm going to take this phone from you, Carlos, and if you guys take a look over here and just take a look at how many cars there are out here. Look at, as far as you can see, this is a Walmart parking lot, folks. As far as you can see, those are just the employees. So if they need that many employees at this Southwest Key Corporation, how many children do you think are in there? And then you guys can see there right in the building. We're gonna have so much more footage coming for you guys. And again, this is all brought to you by LFA TV. Big shout out to Jeremy Harold. Big shout out to Carlos over here for stepping up and doing the right thing. We're gonna be bringing you guys a ton of great content.
Man, you can see it. You can see just how packed that parking lot is. But yeah, I mean, going back to what I was saying, I guess, gosh, we're going to be hitting 2 hours here pretty soon. So we can start to kind of
1,600 now.
Yeah. So
I got time if you want to keep rolling. So
well, yeah, I mean, we can start kind of wrapping up a little bit, but it's just kind of look at the bigger picture of this. Like, there's all these people that have this. We have this energy of like, okay, God bless America, God save America. When I look at the people of America, as I mentioned before, I think that the average person in America is a good person. Now, you look at these kinds of operations, it's like our whole government just needs to be wiped out. Now, I'm not calling for the murder of our whole government. I'm saying that, like, we need to kind of reset. Like, it's like the corruption and the evil is so insane that, like, it's not just like you think of corrupt politicians and you think, oh, okay, the corrupt politicians, they're getting insider trading advice and they're taking kickbacks and, hey, here's this congressperson that's worth $200 million on a salary of $200,000 a year. It doesn't make sense. Okay, there's that kind of corruption, but this is different. Like, when you think about this kind of corruption, that our government is running the world's largest child sex trafficking network. Like, what do we do? Like, 6 months ago, the solution would have been get Trump in. Trump's going to do it. Well, here we are. And I don't see the Gitmo beds, I don't see the Gitmo beds kind of filling up. I don't see the wood chippers being turned on. I mean, it's like, man,
it is the biggest letdown ever. And like I said, you are 6 to 12 months, if you started today, away from actually having a safe environment ready to receive these children. And that is not happening. I can guarantee you that is not happening. So we are going to, and it's getting such a big stain, right? You see them trying to say, we saved 5,000 migrant children. We rescued this. We did this. Where are they? Where'd you put them? Where are the victims at? Where'd you get them from? Where'd you find all of them at? Were they all in one facility? You had found all 5,000 in one facility? Just seems kind of odd. In the first week of this administration, he came out, we said we located 70,000 children. You located. Okay, how many did you rescue? Oh, it was 0. So you actually haven't saved any. And again, 6 to 12 months. But where, like America, like I thought, I campaigned for Trump, right? I was raw, team Trump. We're going to, day one, I was promising everybody, I said, we're kicking indoors day one, folks. There is no way that Trump's going to take office and he's going to allow these 300,000 children just to stay missing, because we had broke this down. If you want to pull up that yellow spreadsheet really quick, I can give your audience an idea. So we're going to talk about why I say rape to death. So check this out. So on the left, on the top left, you'll see 452,121. To the right of that, 350,000. And then to the right of that, you'll see, 1,460, right? So that is over a 4-year period. There's 1,460 days in a year. So if we take, or in 4 years, so we take 350,000 missing children and we divide that by 1,460, that gives you a number, which you see on the bottom left there, of 240. So 240 children per day is how many children your government was taking custody of, vetting some random adult, and then actually delivering. So the 240 is how many children were getting delivered per day. Now, if you pull up screenshot number 2 that I sent you, this is released to sponsors. So this was the last 4 months of the Biden administration, first 2 months of the Trump administration. So we have a little bit of good news to report here. So the number on the bottom is 5,111 that you see for October. That's how many children we delivered into this network of pedophiles during October. November, 5,347, December, 5,392, January, 5,100.
Actually, hey, Ryan, sorry, I'm going to give a quick shout out. So Ramble on 365 on Rumble just donated $100 to our live stream and says, thank you for covering this. I just want to interrupt you and give a huge shout out. Thank you. And actually, I'll say something really quickly here, and I'll dive back in. This is that the single most important thing that we can do to stop this is to have these conversations publicly. Like that is where the power lies. Is that, like, the problem is that the average person walking down the street does not know any of the information that you and I are talking about. Our audience, your audience, they know it. But the problem is that not like such a small portion of the American population actually knows what's happening. And that's why it's so important to do what you're doing, documentaries, podcasts, what we're doing together. And the people that are watching, like they're part of the same army, because they're taking these videos, they're sharing it with their friends and family. They're showing it to their church, whatever. Now that's why it's so important when we say, hey, please share this content. This is it, because we have to get more Americans aware of what's actually happening. It's the only way we can change this. Like, it's the only way that I see we can change this. Anyway, I just want to throw that out there.
No, you're 100% right. And it's humiliation, right? That is the only thing. Public humiliation is the only thing these scumbags respond to. When they can't even go out and rub shoulders with their buddies at or go into a local cafe and get a piece of key lime pie without the person working at the cash register going, wait, why didn't you save those children, right? That's what we need. We need so much public humiliation. So go back to that second sheet and I'll really unpack that for you. And Rabelon, thank you again for that donation. God bless you, man. So we see, Trump's first full month in office, right? February of 2025, the number drops from 5,151 to 1,858. That is a decrease of 64%. So Trump decreased the amount of children being delivered into this network of pedophiles by our government by roughly 64% his first month in office. By the second month, it was 343. I bet you when we get February's or April's numbers out, it'll probably be even lower. Because what was implemented in March, and why you see that steep drop cut off there in March, was they implemented the DNA testing again. So it was mandatory. In order for one of these children to be released into this network of pedophiles, they had to pass a DNA test, and the person that was receiving them had to be a relative, or so we thought. Now, if you go to the next screenshot, which I actually probably said in your last podcast, I said this is the most important and monumental decision that the Trump administration has made. And it was re-implementing the DNA testing expansion PDF. Now, Bonnie just told me, who's an expert at this, she said, if you actually look at that, it is not mandatory. They have now provided the ability for them to provide the DNA testing, and they should be doing the DNA testing. But again, it is not mandatory. And my question is to your audience, our government has held 8 hearings this year already on anti-Semitism. 8 hearings. That's everybody in our government getting together to hold hearings over words, over taking away your ability to speak. But we can't get a hearing to talk about the amount of migrant children that are getting raped and handed over to this network of pedophiles. We can't talk about we can't get a Senate hearing about America being the #1 consumer of child porn and what we're going to do to combat that. What about #1 consumer of child rape? What are we going to do to combat that? We don't have any hearings about those, America, but they'll be first to jump on a hearing. Now, if you go back to my first spreadsheet there, the next number you see above 240 on the left is 179. So Biden's last month in office, January of 2025, they were delivering 5,311 children. Divide that by 30 days in a month, and you get a number of 179 children. So even at the very end of the Biden administration, we were still delivering 179 children per day into this network of pedophiles. And I had already broke down for your audience why that matters, right? Because they hit the stop clock starts the second that that child is delivered into that network of pedophiles, into this child trafficking pipeline. Their life expectancy goes from 72 years to 36 months. So that means that on Joe Biden's 70th day in office, it was March 31st of 2021, the Biden administration had openly admitted to already losing 20,000 children. Those 20,000 children, you can assume, based off of FBI data and statistics, and the statistics and data that our government gave us already, that about 99% of those children have been raped to death. They've succumbed to their illnesses because they were not rescued in time. So Trump took office. We'll just use the 100-day example because that's accurate on here. So if you were delivering 179 children per day into a network of pedophiles, and Trump's been in office for 100 days, every day that goes on that he didn't rescue a child and go kick in the doors and save the children that were literally hitting their expiration date that day, those 240 basically succumbed to their illnesses. So roughly between 17,900 and 24,000 migrant children have been raped to death that could have been saved had we had serious people in the Trump administration who had a plan in place and day one were kicking in the doors and saving these children. And I don't want to hear any gosh damn excuses. I can go out tomorrow if you give me access. And why would you not give Ryan Matt access? Why would you not give somebody that says, hey, I can go find these children. All I need is access to that UC portal. Whatever non-disclosure contracts I need to sign, all I need is the address, last known location. And I want the same tools and resources that the FBI had to hunt down January 6ers. You give me the ability to get those FISA warrants. You give me the ability to tap phones, track geolocation data, and you get Google to help me. I will bring home every one of these kids in less than 6 months. 6 months. It would take me not even that. I would have already brought them home by now, probably. A vast majority of them. I would have been so loud and aggressive with this that I would have had traffickers literally dropping these children off, because I would have said that if you bring the child back and you drop them off at a church or a hospital or a police department or a fire department, I'm going to give you 24 hours before I come hunting for you. And once we find you, it's the death sentence. But I will give you that 24-hour period to flee our country if you turn in the child, and you'll get the opportunity. You get 24 hours to run before I come and hunt you down. And then what we would do, I would bust and prosecute the first one that trafficked them through Idaho so that we could implement the death penalty. And then obviously if you have it on camera or there's semen samples in both, even better, I would pass laws that you don't get an appeal. If you were filmed and you were busted and we raided your house and there was a 6-year-old girl chained in your basement who had been sexually assaulted and was riddled with STDs, you don't get a gosh damn appeal. You're going to court. We're going to expedite that process as fast as humanly possible. You're going to get the death sentence, and we're going to carry that sentence out within months. And that's how you fix this. You string a couple of these scumbags up in the public town square and you let their bodies rot for weeks while the crows peck their eyes out and their feces literally leaks out of every orifice of their body. And then you live stream it and you just send that message and you watch how fast America would go from the child kidnapping or child trafficking capital of the world to one of the safest countries in the world for women and children to be in. And our government could fix this so fast, America. I could fix this so fast. But your government doesn't want to fix this because child porn, listen to this. We are the #1 consumer of child porn, #1 consumer of child rape, #1 consumer of child ritual sacrifice, okay? Child porn and child trafficking are not even in the top 20 of the FBI's top priorities. If you were to make a bulletin list and you were to label exactly what priority things were, child porn is the lowest banded threat. So in the FBI, they have to hit quotas, right? For the supervisors to get their bonuses every month. And we're talking about like like $20,000, $30,000 bonuses. I mean, that's a brand new car for your kid, right? These FBI agents that are in these supervisor roles have to hit quotas, right? So take a look at January 6th. Why was everybody labeled as a domestic terrorist? Well, because after 9/11, when the Patriot Act created this protocols that the FBI agents had to hit their criteria, domestic terrorism was number one, right? So domestic terrorism became the number one banded threat by the FBI. And in order to hit that quota and for the supervisors to get their bonuses, they had to hit an X amount of cases, and it was by each division. So why did they break up all the January 6 cases and spread them all across the country? Because every supervisor at every Washington, D.C. field office or every FBI field office was able to hit their quotas for domestic terrorism because they were arresting January 6ers in Florida, in Texas, in Washington, all over the country. And why would we go through sprints where all of a sudden tons of January 6ers were getting arrested? And then all of a sudden we go like 3 months and nobody got arrested. Everybody's like, oh, maybe they're backing off. Maybe they're backing off. Oh, no. What happened on October 1st? Oh, the doors got kicked in on October 1st because that's when the new year starts. That's when the new quarter starts, right? That's when their fiscal year starts. That's the word I was looking for. So your FBI is incentivized to bust and arrest more domestic terrorism because then then that number goes up, right? And then they have to hit the quota, and the quota just gets bigger and bigger. If they start filing and arresting child predators and working on child porn, guess what's going to go up? And they don't want that to go up because nobody wants to work child porn. It's like a stigma. It's the only thing in the FBI where you can actually say no. I don't want to work it. And the FBI will go, okay, good. You can go take your 2-hour gym break and go in your little nap chair in the FBI and have a nice day. They won't make you work child porn. So they don't want to take any more cases because their quotas go up. So how do you rationalize that? We have Epstein victims that are dying. We have a blackmail network that has been built by the intelligence agencies over the last 50 years. It is so entrenched that Epstein wasn't even the start of it. It started with the Finder's Cult, then it went into the Franklin scandal, then it turned into Epstein, then Diddy had to come in along and pick up the scraps. If you don't think they've already replaced Epstein and they've already replaced Diddy, you are out of your gosh damn mind. And we should all be starting to say, okay, this didn't go anywhere. This didn't end. Even if we get justice for Epstein and all of the people that are in that network, it's so much deeper and darker than we can ever imagine. And unless we start going and holding these scumbags accountable, we're never going to fix it. We have to, America. This is it. If we can't get our country united behind saving these migrant children, and when I tell you that if we start going after the people that were involved in this, and I've already presented enough evidence to probably put half these suckers away in just in this stream, let alone my 3 full-length documentaries out there with every whistleblower who ever worked and came forward at any of these organizations, employees that work there, parents that have saved their children, dudes that have gone and kicked in the door and rescued these children from the trafficking environments that they were being brought or that they were being kept in. We have all the receipts. We have all the evidence. And when is somebody going to get arrested? I don't know. You guys tell me, but that's about it.
Man. Well, the fact that this is now becoming more mainstream does give me some hope that, like what you mentioned, right? O'Keefe can do a video, get 7 million views on X. That, these things can go viral. Now, this video might get taken down on YouTube because maybe we offended, their kind of content moderators. But like that's the thing. We have to get this information out. Ryan, as we're wrapping up, I want to bring up your website one last time. Let me find it here in my list. Operation Amber Alert. So operationamberalert.com. Also, this is, or what is it? What is treason? Or what is the website?
The website is This Is Treason. Okay.
So thisistreason.com is your other one. I know you've done a lot with my good friend, JJ Carroll. You guys are, a pretty powerful duo. Your documentary, you recommend people follow you over on Twitter, at,
we are coming at you live.
Sorry, here's your Twitter account for people. So yeah, Ryan, man, thank you. Gosh, yeah, we'll hit 2 hours on this, pretty easily, but thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for coming on and giving me your time. I guess one question is, how can people support you? Because I know more of like your kind of back end operations, and you're very much so a one-man team. You're self-financing, you're self-funding this kind of stuff. How can people support you? Because in my opinion, you look at all these things that donate. You go to the pet store and everything. It's like, oh, do you want to donate $3 to like saving kittens in the Congo? It's like, no, you know what I mean. But it's people like you that deserve that money, deserve that support. So, what can people do to support you and help you accelerate this mission that you have?
Thanks, Seth. Yeah, I started this out with JJ, and when we put out those first 2 documentaries, right, we put them behind a paywall because when you have 2 people, it's so expensive to travel. You got to time flights out, and everything just exponentially goes up. So when we released Trafficked and it didn't go viral, right, it didn't get the attention we thought it was going to get. The purpose of that film was just to save these children, and I feel like I've been sent on a mission by God, right? So I kind of have this deal with God where I'm going to help save these 350,000 children, and then I'm just going to go retire and have a bunch of children and kind of fade away into the abyss. But so yeah, I've just been on this mission, and I said, okay, well, if God wants me to save these children, I can't do it without putting these films out for free, because you can't put them behind a paywall. Because when you talk about child trafficking, people are like, oh yeah, I know, blah, 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 blah. They look away, right? So I said, okay, I was blessed by God with getting early into Bitcoin, so I had a little bit of money and a little nest egg, and I said, okay, I'm going to fund 3 of these documentaries out of myself, $25,000 each. I'm going to put them all out for free, and if the audience chooses to support my work and wants to donate, every time one I can make back the $25,000 I spend on one, I'll put it right into the next. And now we have 2 out already, and our 3rd and 4th are coming out next in like any day. I'm supposed to be getting one back that's supposed to release today, but I haven't got it back from my editor yet. And then another one that's releasing on May 29th as well. And again, all my films are free. You can go to givesendgo.com, Operation Amber Alert, and donate and support my work. Or you can just subscribe over on X and Rumble. Those are, the $4.99. I'm trying to get 3,000 people that are willing to support me for $4.99 a month, and we could put out a new documentary every 60 days. We would never have to ask for donations. We could just do it together, and we could really do some damage. Like, I'm doing all this on a shoestring budget. Like, imagine if I had the funds that Dinesh had or James O'Keefe had. In 1 year, I'll have had put out 7 full-length documentaries. By September of 2025, I'll have put out 7 full-length documentaries by myself on a shoestring budget. So we get a little bit of capital. And look out, we're gonna be doing the stuff that I think that Dinesh D'Souza should be doing. Like, Police State was good and all, but man, I mean, I think, when you have access to these politicians and your voice is so big they can't ignore you, we could be putting the pressure on these people to at the very least save these children. So God bless you, Seth, and thank you everybody that supports my work.
Oh, absolutely, man, and thank you. We're approaching 2,000 people watching live just on Rumble. We probably got 1,000 or so other places, but the other thing too is for people that are watching, share this. Right. Like, and the thing is, like, I think that we had this conversation in an easy way for a casual kind of audience member to watch. Right. We're not, we're not like, kind of diving in or showing really bad stuff. We're just having a very level-headed, rational conversation. So this should be an easy video to share with people. It's not, like if someone's watching it and they've got friends that are more liberal, show them this video. It's obvious that we're not on here just, banging the drum for Trump. We're saying, hey, where's the action? So this is like the children is the issue that I feel like our entire country, it doesn't matter whether you have a Biden sign out front or a rainbow flag hanging off your door, off your steps or whatever it is. This is the topic that we should all be able to come together on as Americans, because if we can't fix this, it's kind of like, well, should we even bother asking God to save this nation? You know what I mean? If we can't fix this in our own country, do we deserve to be a nation, or do we deserve to be, Sodom and Gomorrah and just, fire and brimstone and start over again? All right. Because if it's, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
No, Kajaf, I was so glad that you said that, because you are 100% right, Seth. Like, look at our country isn't being rewarded, right? We thought Trump was going to come in and save the day. We didn't deserve to be saved. We have to save ourselves. And if you can't get behind saving these 350,000 children, and you think God's going to come back and bless our nation when we've allowed our government to traffic in 350,000 children into the most evil, like, no matter how bad you think or what image you have of how bad these children have it, I guarantee you it is 100 times worse than you could ever even fantasize or imagine in your head. That's how bad of these children are dealing with on a daily basis. It's just words can't describe. So, God, if you guys don't even donate, if you can just share my documentary. X is super big on the algorithm, right? Nothing helps it more. Even I would rather take a comment or a reply to a comment over 100 likes or over 10 retweets. So if you could just go down in the video and just drop some comments on it, it'll help the algorithm so much and it'll help so many more people see this. So God bless you guys, and thank you.
Yeah, Ryan, thank you so much, man. It's been great. I really appreciate you coming on.
God bless you, brother. Thank your audience too. Smash that like button on your way out the door, folks. Thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you.
God bless you.